Thanks for listening to our daily podcast. If you love what you're hearing and you want more, you can get all 3 daily hours ad-free and on demand for less than $3 per month. Go to michaelmedved.com and subscribe today. We have a special deal right now, 50% off an annual membership. Our program covers all the current controversies in the news with my independent and uncensored views. Become a MedHead member today. Find out more at michaelmedved.com. That's michaelmedved.com.
And now, your daily dose of debate, breaking news, and uncensored views. This is the Michael Medved Show.
And another great day in this greatest nation on God's green earth. A great day to take a look at what happened over the weekend with the United States authorizing and executing a number of attacks on the territory of Nigeria. Nigeria, the most populous and in many ways the most powerful nation in the continent of Africa. The Nigerian population, 220 million, about evenly divided between Christians and Muslims. Is this an attempt to make Nigeria into a holy war? We will get to that. That is at least the comment of one expert on the nation of Nigeria and its political divisions at the University of Pennsylvania. We will get to that. There is also a report on the Hill, and the Hill says at the end of this first year of the new Trump administration, the productivity of Congress has gradually declined, and signs indicate more and more lawmakers are looking to leave, including some very prominent lawmakers like Elise Stefanik of New York, who at one point had been appointed by Trump to be head of the Environmental Protection Agency, but no, she's not doing that, and she's not going to continue in Congress, and she's not running for governor of New York. What is she doing? Who knows? But meanwhile, many lawmakers are looking to leave. Marjorie Taylor Greene, who has announced her engagement, is also planning to leave her seat in Congress representing Georgia. The House and Senate set a modern record this year with the lowest legislative output in the first year of a new presidency, with fewer than 40 bills passed, that according to data from C-SPAN and Purdue University. The most significant legislative accomplishment of the year was the One Big Beautiful Bill Act, which is just, you like to think that there's when you talk about one big beautiful bill, you're talking about a person. But no, that's why they add the word act, the One Big Beautiful Bill Act, which Trump signed into law in July. That law extended and expanded tax cuts implemented during Trump's first term. It added some funding for defense and immigration enforcement and cut spending on Medicaid and food assistance. Okay, with this productivity of Congress, this relates very directly to points that were made by Karl Rove and covered in The Hill. Karl Rove usually writes for the Wall Street Journal, of course, the leading Republican and conservative strategist who was part of the Bush administration when Bush was governor of Texas and both of his 2 terms as president of the United States. They report on The Hill that Republican strategist Karl Rove on Saturday urged the Trump administration to speak more about its accomplishments to shore up support ahead of midterm elections. The president will end this year at the lowest approval rating in modern times for a president in the first year after his inauguration, said Karl Rove. He has got to get those numbers up. That's what Rove said during an appearance on Fox News. I am convinced a large part of it is going to be patiently explaining what it is he has done, explaining what it is he wants to do, particularly with regards to health care, in a way that American people can put their hand around it, the Fox News contributor added. Rove, for example, said that President Trump should visit the southern border to tout his administration's efforts to secure it with stepped-up immigration enforcement. Nobody doubts that those efforts have been successful in cutting the rate of illegal immigration. It's saying a little bit more than you can justify to say that there is no illegal immigration, that it is all over, it's finished. Well, not quite. But dramatically down? Yes. And that is an accomplishment that the president promised, and where he can say he has kept that promise. The former advisor to President George W. Bush has also been calling on Republican lawmakers, reports The Hill, to promote legislative wins to their constituencies, citing the renewal of 2017 tax credits and new third-quarter GDP gains as a sign of growth. Still, Rove warned that low polling numbers can weigh heavily on the GOP's success in the 2026 midterm elections. Trump needs to lower the expectations and over-deliver. Under-promise and over-deliver ought to be the goal of this next year, Rove said. Americans are not feeling the economy is great, he said. For him to stand up and say, as he did first in Pennsylvania and then in North Carolina, that everything is great, it doesn't resonate with the felt experience of ordinary American families, Karl Rove added. Trump's approval rating reached a second-term low of 41% last month, and the record-breaking government shutdown has some impact on that, according to the Decision Desk headquarters polling averages. Meanwhile, beyond the polling, second-term midterms are never happy ones, said Karl Rove, for the president, except for 1998, when Bill Clinton gained, because Republicans had overplayed their hand with his impeachment, and the first term for George W. Bush. But those have been rare moments where midterm elections have worked to the advantage of the party in power. That's what what Karl Rove noted on Saturday. Okay. And then this goes forward, and maybe this helps to explain the kind of advice that Karl Rove is doing, is to talk more about achievements. It explains this big new White House push that was been announced and supplemented today to try to get people to pray more. There's a statement that President Trump made just before the 4th of July this year, July 3rd. He was speaking in Iowa. And President Trump said, as we prepare to celebrate 2.5 centuries of freedom, I am inviting America's great religious communities to pray for our nation and for our people. From the beginning, this has always been a country sustained and strengthened by prayer. So important. If we bring religion back stronger, you're going to see everything get better and better and better. You are going to see it get better and better. He repeats himself. So as we chart our course for the next 250 years, let us rededicate ourselves to one nation under God. And what President Trump is asking for with this new initiative, which has been heavily covered on Fox News, he asks, what if 1 million Americans dedicated 1 hour per week to praying for our country and our people? The invitation: will you join with at least 10 people to meet each week for 1 hour to pray for America? The idea of at least 10 people, there's a Jewish idea called a minyan. And you to say some prayers, not most of them. Most of them you can say personally and at home alone. But for some group prayers, you need 10 adult males, actually. Well, and of course, in Reform and Conservative Judaism, just 10 individuals. We will get to that and to the new effort on the part of the Trump administration to accomplish something by encouraging prayer. Coming up on the Medved Show. And a new invitation from the White House. Actually, it's an invitation that goes back to July 4th, when we were, actually July 3rd, to be very precise, when we were getting ready for this coming July 4th, which, of course, will be 250 years of American independence and existence of this blessed and wonderful country. And the president is asking, what if 1 million Americans dedicated 1 hour a week to praying for our country and our people? And one could add our leaders, because he wants people to pray for the leadership of this country too. And the invitation, will you join with at least 10 people to meet each week for 1 hour to pray for America? Now, according to most statistics, and there are different statistics on this based upon the study and the sample size they take, but most people agree that at least a third of Americans do some kind of religious service every week. And it's a lot. It's more than most other countries, and it's part of what has sustained our country. And in fact, in the presidential statement by President Trump, he says, as we celebrate 250 years of freedom, this is an opportunity to rededicate ourselves to the principles that gave birth to this land of liberty. We should always be rededicated to those principles. As George Washington famously said in his farewell address, quote, of all the dispositions and habits which lead to political prosperity, religion and morality are indispensable supports. In vain would that man claim the tribute of patriotism who should labor to subvert these great pillars of human happiness, these firmest props of the duties of men and citizens. And look, the words of Washington's farewell address, which were largely written, by the way, by his Secretary of the Treasury, Alexander Hamilton, that those are always uplifting and positive words. And the president goes on to say, this dedicated time of prayer is not only for our nation, but for its people, because a nation is only as strong as its citizens. And then he lists resources and ideas for times of prayer, historic prayers, sermons, presidential proclamations, follow the Common Acts prayer model, adoration, contrition, thanksgiving, supplication, open the prayer meeting with scripture about God's sovereignty and nations. And it suggests passages from the book of Chronicles, the book of Psalms, and the book of Timothy, and then organize the time of prayer by different subjects, such as prayer for government leaders, cultural renewal, protection of freedom, families, individuals, etc., and this with a weekly prayer challenge. Each member commits to pray daily for a specific issue or person. Pray for individuals in your community by name. Okay, all of this sounds very ambitious, and Paula Kane White, who is the very outspoken, impassioned pastor, you may remember a couple of years ago there was a great deal of discussion about some video of her speaking in tongues in President Trump's behalf. She has been appointed by President Trump as the coordinator for this White House religious drive. And one of the other interesting comments regarding President Trump and his religiosity, you wonder that before this effort now to get Americans leading up to the 250th anniversary of our country, to get Americans to pray more and using that power of prayer as a force to unify the country. There was an interview with Manu Raju of CNN and Gene Simmons, and that Gene Simmons is best known not as a religious figure, though he does say he has religious faith and claims a Jewish background. He is best known for KISS, and that's not the activity, that's the group, the rock group with the painted faces. He was talking about religion, and he compared Trump a little bit to Jesus. And Gene Simmons said, not everybody loves Jesus, but you can certainly say the following. He, meaning President Trump, was a duly elected president of these United States, perhaps overwhelming by the popular vote, as well as the electoral college. End of story. Well, not so overwhelming, frankly. If you look at the other presidents, this is all of President Trump's elections, the ones that he won, the two that he won, and the one that he lost, they were all relatively close. They weren't, any of them, a landslide. And the one that was most decisive was the one that Joe Biden won in 2020 by 7 million popular votes. And this may not have been a statement of blanket support. They write about Gene Simmons, but it's kind of hard to tell. When asked what he thought of MAGA, Simmons was slightly more straightforward, saying some of it makes sense and some not. He also wondered why anyone would look to him specifically for political opinions. Well, because you've got time to fill on CNN. And why anybody should care. It's nobody's damn business who you support, Simmons added. When Manu Raju jokingly suggested that Simmons wouldn't answer the question if asked whether he supports Trump's policies, he responded, the question is, who are you to ask that question? You would think it's a reporter's job to ask questions, but who's to say for sure? In other words, this gets us to the idea that, oh, yes, it's very noble to encourage people to pray. And I think it does, as somebody who prays every morning. And it is something that has improved my life. I think it's a positive thing and makes me, I think, a better person because you have a context and all of that's good. But then there's that basis for American life in the First Amendment that Congress shall make no law respecting establishment of a religion. So if you have the White House actually organizing these times for prayer, is that completely appropriate given some of the strictures of the First Amendment? We will get to that and more, and the latest on this bombing in Nigeria by American forces, coming up on the Medved Show. Okay, it's obvious that the days are counting down to the end of 2025. Most estimates were this wasn't a particularly great year. I mean, lots of things have happened over this year that have been painful and difficult and setbacks for many people in America. So what do you do about it? Well, you take advantage of one of the things that we're counting down to the end of the year, which is the Great American History Sale at Michael Medved History Store and at michaelmedved.com. And one of the things that you can check out that is new and it's available and it's free, yes, absolutely free, are short videos that we have on the Michael Medved YouTube channel. You can find them at Michael, you go first to YouTube, and then you go out to find michaelmedvedofficial.com. And once you watch it, you can subscribe to our YouTube channel, also no cost to you at all. And meanwhile, you can take advantage of the American History sale, so save over 50% on selective titles, including a hardcover first edition autographed book of my book, God's Hand on America, Divine Providence in the Modern Era. There's also a complete Veterans Day collection about America's major wars. The God's Hand on America, the book, is $14.99. It's regularly at stores. It's a list price of $30. So you're talking about half price. And the Veterans Day collection, $69.99. And that involves like 12 different programs about conflicts in U.S. history, including the Vietnam War and the three big lies about Vietnam, Korea, America's forgotten war, and how it is that we won World War II so decisively. That and much more. The Complete Veterans Day collection, the cost for all of it, $69.99. Just go to Michael Medved History Store, and you'll find more information there. Have we made history already by attacking a Nigerian village and attacking a village that they point out in Alternet has no known history of anti-Christian terrorism? Well, it's a complicated question. And we don't know yet what history is going to say about this. When President Donald Trump launched a series of airstrikes in Nigeria on Christmas, he described it as an attack against ISIS terrorist scum. That's what he said, in northwest Nigeria, who have been targeting and viciously killing primarily innocent Christians. But locals in a town that was hit during the strike say terrorism has never been a problem for them. On Friday, CNN published a report based on interviews with several residents of Jabo, which was a town hit by a U.S. missile during Thursday's attack on Christmas Day. The attack, one of the missiles landed just a few feet from the town's only hospital, but that hospital was spared. The rural town of Jabo is part of the Sokoto state in northwestern Nigeria, which the Trump administration and the Nigerian government said was hit during the strike. Both sides have said militants were killed during the attack, but have not specified their identities or the number of casualties. But the Trump administration's explanation that their home is at the center of a Christian genocide left many residents of Jabo confused. While parts of Sokoto face challenges with banditry, kidnappings, and attacks by armed groups, including Lakurawa, which Nigeria classifies as a terrorist organization due to suspected affiliations with the Islamic State. The villagers say that Jabo is not known for terrorist activity and that local Christians coexist peacefully with the Muslim majority. Bashar Issa Jabo, a lawmaker who represents the town and surrounding areas in Nigeria's parliament, describes the village to CNN as a peaceful community that has no known history of ISIS, Lakurawa, or any other terrorist group operating in the area. While the town is predominantly Muslim, President Suleiman Kagara told reporters, "We see Christians as our brothers. We do not have religious conflicts, So we weren't expecting this. I don't think anyone was expecting this. And at least the Nigerian government was notified in advance. Nigeria, Africa's most populous nation with more than 237 million people, has a long history of violence between Christians and Muslims, with each making up about half the population. However, Nigerian officials have disputed claims by Republican leaders in the United States, including U.S. Senator Ted Cruz, who have claimed that the government is ignoring and even facilitating the mass murder of Christians. Senator Cruz recently claimed, without citing a source for the figures, that since 2009, over 50,000 Christians in Nigeria have been massacred and over 18,000 churches and 2,000 Christian schools have been destroyed by the Islamist group Boko Haram. Cruz is correct that many Christians have been killed by Boko Haram, but according to reports by the U.S.-based Armed Conflict Location and Event Data Project and the Council on Foreign Relations, the majority of the approximately 53,000 civilians killed by the group since 2009 have been not Christian, but Muslim. Moreover, the areas where Boko Haram is most active are in northeastern Nigeria, far away from where the Trump's strikes were conducted. Attacks on Christmas cited in October by Cruz, meanwhile, have been in Nigeria's Middle Belt region, which is separate from the violence in the north. And the piece quotes Anthea Butler, who is a religious scholar at the University of Pennsylvania. She's criticized the Trump administration's attempts to turn the complex situation in Nigeria into a holy war. Butler has doubted the sincerity of Trump's concern for the nation's Christians due to his administration's denial of entry for Nigerian refugees, as well as virtually every other refugee group, with the exception of white South Africans. And that's true. There's actually a story, a sad story in the New York Times about a white South African, an Afrikaner, who thought that Trump was inviting his people to come to the United States. And he came here and got picked up by ISIS and put into a detention camp. This Anthea Butler says, I think this is part of it disingenuous to say you're going to go and save Christianity in Nigeria when you have, banned Nigerians from coming to this country. We will be right back on the Medved Show. And in these last few days of 2025, it's appropriate to look back at some of the frustration that people feel about the year just concluding. I mean, come on, we have let's see. New Year's Eve is Wednesday night. It's Tuesday night, right? It's it's Wednesday night. In any event, everybody's ready for New Year's Eve. Everybody's ready for saying goodbye to 2025 and hello to 2026. And one of the reasons that people are more excited about 2026 is the prospect of change, because there is a major election. And one of the points that is made in a very good column by Kristen Soltis Anderson, who is a Republican pollster, is that voters resolve to change politics, as every major election we've had, including off-year elections, have been change elections. They have been the American people wanting to move in a different direction than they're going now. But change is hard, and the sense of change around us has never been fully actualized by any of these change elections. And she writes, And I think it's very true and it's insightful. As each new year approaches, many people reflect on what they hope will be different in the new year. We imagine ourselves living up to an ideal and wish for a better tomorrow. Americans keep hoping next year will be better for their country, too. In polls that I run every day for my work, voters consistently say they want a different type of approach to politics and governing. They express their disapproval of leaders who behave badly. Record high levels of voters say they don't like either party. They tell me over and over again in interviews and surveys and focus groups that they worry about how divided we've become or how nasty our politics are. And so voters keep resolving to change our country, too. Nearly every federal election in the past 20 years has been what we call a change election in some fashion, though through handing control of the White House or one chamber of Congress to the party not in power. And yet we are increasingly disappointed in those we elect. We wonder, no wonder that 2/3 of Americans told the Pew Research Center that they often felt exhausted by politics, and that was way back in 2023. Voters will express in focus groups that the ability to bring people together, to be pragmatic and to embody strong character is important to them. In surveys, however, voters often say they prefer candidates who are willing to compromise to get things done to those who stand firm on principle. If that's really what voters want, then why aren't their elected leaders giving them more of it? And she says that one answer, voters say, is that their leaders are just not listening. Many think political leaders are in on it only for fame or money, not for policy or service. Yet there is evidence that that those who are willing to compromise to get things done to those who stand firm on principle. If that's really what voters want, then why aren't their elected leaders giving them more of it? One answer is because they think that the people who are elected are in it for themselves and not for public service. Politicians talk and vote the way they do because at some level it aligns with what their voters want. When political leaders push extreme or manipulative messaging, they are often handsomely rewarded in their fundraising efforts. That's one reason that you see such toxic, negative advertising in campaigns. In our attention-driven media ecosystem, what makes us feel something seems to go viral far more easily than what makes us think. Some of those better candidates may have failed to make it through a primary. Potentially good candidates might not have entered a race at all. After all, even in 10 voters is a different 7 in 10 voters, in a different Pew poll said that candidates running for office in recent years were bad. In other words, there's a negativity based upon voting for change, but not seeing it because it doesn't develop. And by the way, an example of this is the material that's everywhere now in Yahoo Finance and New York Times, Cato Institute, about the Department of Government Efficiency, DOGE, which was formerly run, of course, by Elon Musk. It ends 2025 with strikingly divergent results around its two primary goals. On one front, government payroll numbers are down this year by about 9%, from million federal workers in January to 2.744 million in November. At the same time, government spending hasn't slowed. In other words, the whole idea of DOGE, the Department of Government Efficiency, was to cut back spending and to cut back on deficit spending and the size of the national debt. Didn't happen. At the same time, government spending hasn't slowed despite Musk's promises there. A tool from the Brookings Institution's Hamilton Project tracks government money headed out the door in real time and shows outlays as of December 19th have risen from 7.135 trillion to 7.558 trillion, nearly a 6% increase and not any kind of a decrease at all. Cato Institute offered in its analysis, DOGE has had no noticeable effect on the trajectory of spending, but it did help engineer the largest peacetime workforce reduction on record. In other words, if you're spending more money but employing fewer people, something has not gone right at all. As they report in the New York Times, for DOGE, big disruptions returned meager savings. Largest claims were wrong, and real cuts were small, Times analysis finds. Elon Musk's Department of Government Efficiency said it made more than 29,000 cuts to the federal government, slashing billion-dollar contracts, canceling thousands of grants, and pushing out civil servants. How is that possible? Because the group did not do what Mr. Musk said it would, reduce federal spending by $1 trillion, remember that, before October. On DOGE's watch, federal spending did not go down at all. It went up. One big reason, according to the analysts, is many of the largest savings that DOGE claimed turned out to be wrong. And while the group did make thousands of smaller cuts, jolting foreign aid recipients, American small businesses, and local service providers, those amounted to little in the scale of the federal budget. In DOGE's published list of canceled contracts and grants, for instance, the 13 largest were all incorrect. Now, of course, they wanted to speak to Elon Musk about this. And I think this is fascinating, is that neither DOGE nor Mr. Musk, who left the group in May, responded to questions from the Times in a podcast interview this month with Kate Miller, a former spokeswoman for DOGE. Mr. Musk said his group had been somewhat successful in cutting spending, but he says if he had it to do over again, he wouldn't participate. Not a vote of confidence or encouragement concerning the year just passed for this greatest nation on God's green earth.